My name is Aaron. I am Chijiste Usme. I work in IT, mostly security systems for mid-sized companies in the Atlanta area. Quiet guy, stable job, the kind of man who's never made the news, never been in a bar fight, and always try to do right by those I love. Especially my wife, Elena. We met when we were both 24. She was magnetic, wild, spontaneous, unpredictable in the best and worst ways. She had this laugh that made strangers turn their heads. Me? I was more of the reliable type. I brought structure to her chaos. She brought light into my routines. And for a while it worked. It really worked. We bought a modest home in a quiet neighborhood. No kids. Elena wasn't sure she wanted them, and I never pressed. We hosted dinners, took road trips, binged bad shows on the couch. Normal life. Or so I thought. Over the last 2 years, something shifted. She grew distant, distracted. Late-night phone calls, muted laughter behind closed doors. When I asked, she'd brush it off with that same teasing grin. You overthink too much, Sharon. Just relax. But I couldn't. Not anymore. It all came to a head on a Wednesday. I'll never forget it. I had just come home early from a client consult. Surprise pizza in hand. I thought maybe we could reconnect, talk, even laugh like old times. But as soon as I walked in, I knew something was off. The house was too quiet. No Netflix murmuring from the living room. No scent of her candles, which she usually lit by 6. Instead, muffled voices upstairs, hers and a man's. At first, I thought she had company. Maybe a cousin, maybe someone from work. But something in my gut twisted. I climbed the stairs slowly, unsure what I'd even say if it turned out to be nothing. I reached the bedroom door, which was open just a crack. I peered in, and there they were, Elena, and a man I had never seen before, sitting on our bed, fully clothed but too close, too familiar. His hand brushed her thigh like he belonged there, and she didn't flinch. Elena, I asked, stepping in. She didn't jump. She didn't look guilty. She just turned to me, calm, poised, like she'd rehearsed. I was going to talk to you tonight, she said. Esther the hair. Who is this? The man stood, but not an apology. It was more like he was expecting me. She stepped between us, not protectively, but like a mediator. This is Caleb. He's someone I've been seeing. I blinked. My mouth went dry. What do you mean seeing? Elena took a breath, then dropped the bomb. I'm opening our marriage. If you have a problem with that, then you can leave. Just like that. 12 years of history condensed into a single sentence. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I think that scared her more. I just walked backward out of the room and closed the door. Downstairs, the pizza box sat untouched on the counter. I spent that night in the guest room. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept flashing back to her face, how unemotional it was. Like she was explaining a business deal, not unraveling our life. By morning, I wasn't sure what to do. I could leave. I should leave. But it wasn't just a house. It was my life. My routines, my books on a shelf, my coffee mugs, even a stupid dent in the hallway from when we moved the treadmill. I didn't recognize the man she was with. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing I didn't recognize her anymore either. Later that week, she sat across from me in the kitchen, sipping her morning coffee like we were just co-workers sharing break room time. I still love you, she said suddenly. I looked up. Do you? She nodded. But love changes. People grow. We're different now. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for the TED Talk. Then she added, I need more than this. I wanted to ask what this even meant me. Monogamy? Our quiet, boring life? But I held back. I was afraid of the answer. She continued, Caleb, he understands parts of me you don't. I swallowed hard. Then why stay married? Because you're still my person, Aaron. That line. My person. It echoed in my head like a cruel joke. That weekend, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. She said she was going to the studio. Elena had recently started painting again, something she picked up during quarantine. So I waited, gave it an hour, then got in my car and drove. She wasn't at the studio. She was at a park, sitting on a blanket with Caleb, laughing, her head thrown back, the way she used to with me. They looked like a couple on a date, not just seeing each other. They were holding hands, sharing food. Her body curled toward his in that instinctual, magnetic way people lean into love. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't an experiment. This was a replacement. I drove home that day and sat in the car for over an hour. I couldn't bring myself to go inside. Every room held echoes of our past. Her perfume, her books, her voice. But none of it felt real anymore. It felt like I had become a tenant in my own home. And the worst part? She didn't ask me how I felt. Not once. Because in her mind, the decision was already made. I tried to keep my head down after that day in the park. I told myself I needed time to think, to process, to plan. But the truth was, I was stuck. Like a man watching a fire devour his house in slow motion, too numb to grab the hose. Elena carried on like nothing had changed. She was cheerful at breakfast, humming while making coffee. She still asked if I needed anything from the store. Still wore the same robe I bought her last Christmas. Still signed texts with a heart. It was almost worse than if she'd screamed or begged or left. Because it meant she really believed what she did was normal. That our marriage was now open and that I would somehow adapt. But I wasn't adapting. I was unraveling. I didn't tell anyone. Not at first. Not my brother, not my friends, not even my mother. I didn't want the pity, or the advice, or the judgment. I didn't want anyone telling me what I already knew, that I should have left the moment I saw another man on our bed. But after a week of silence, I broke. I called my brother, Daniel. He was blunt as always. "You're still living there?" "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted. He sighed. "Aaron, this isn't just a rough patch. This is nuclear. She brought another guy into your life and told you to deal with it. That's not love. That's domination." It hurt, but he wasn't wrong. Still, a part of me needed to understand. How do we get here? Had she been unhappy for years, and I was just too blind to notice? Or was there something more? That night, I sat down at her laptop while she was in the shower. I knew the password. She never changed it. I didn't want to invade her privacy. But I was beyond that. I needed answers. And I found them. Her emails with Caleb went back more than a year. At first, they were subtle. Book recommendations. Shared playlists. Talks about art. But then I found one that stopped me cold. Subject. "Remember that weekend in Asheville?" Message. "Still the best 3 days of my life." Sometimes I wonder if I made the wrong choice back then. Back then, I scrolled further. There it was. Photos. Old ones. Dated before she and I met. Caleb wasn't new. He was her ex. Not just an old boyfriend. The one who came before me. The one she told me never really mattered. The one she said was immature and unreliable. Turns out, he had been her fiancé. They broke it off just months before she and I started dating. And now he was back. Not by accident, but by invitation. I felt sick. Everything we built. Our life, our routines, our memories. It had been laid over the bones of another love story. One she never fully buried. I wanted to confront her, scream, demand to know why she lied for years. But instead, I went quiet. I began watching her differently. Her glances at her phone. Her casual mentions of an old friend. The way she started dressing up more. Perfume, earrings, clothes I hadn't seen in months. This wasn't a woman exploring freedom. This was a woman rekindling her first fire and letting it burn down everything in its path. That weekend, my mother came to visit. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. "You've lost weight," she said, touching my cheek. "I'm fine, Elid." But as we sat on the porch, she asked me something simple that hit like a truck. "Is she still making you happy?" I didn't answer. I couldn't lie to her. Not about that. So she nodded, slowly. "Then you have to decide what your peace is worth, Aaron. Because love without peace will hollow you out." I started sleeping in the guest room full-time. Elena Baralai notichid. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. We became polite strangers. Ships in a house. She went out more. Claimed she was exploring herself. "Trying new things," she said. I asked once, "Do I fit into your new life?" She smiled vaguely. "You always will, but not in the same way." What does that even mean? A week later, I saw them again. Not by accident. I was leaving the grocery store when I spotted her across the parking lot, holding Caleb's hand, laughing, like a couple of teenagers sneaking out after curfew. And then I saw his hand on her lower back, and her lips brushing his cheek. I didn't confront them. I just sat in my car, watched, and quietly shattered all over again. That night, I searched Caleb's name online. I didn't even know his last name until then. Caleb Ronan, 39, freelance artist, divorced. What stood out was a photo. It was dated 6 years ago. Him and Elena, side by side. The caption read, "To the one that got away." And the comments? She replied, "Maybe not forever." I felt cold all over. This wasn't sudden. This was planned. Elena hadn't drifted into this. She had slowly been walking back toward it. Toward him. The next morning, I woke up to find her sitting in the living room, scrolling her phone. She looked up. "You okay?" I said nothing. She set the phone down. "Aaron, talk to me." "I know who he is," I said. My voice was flat. She stiffened. "Who?" "Caleb. Your ex. Your fiancé. The one you lied about." She stood slowly. "That was years ago. Then why are you building a life with him now?" "Well, I'm still here." She looked away. "Because I never stopped loving him." Silence. Raw. Brutal. Unfiltered. "But I love you too," she added quickly. "It's just different. Different." Everything was different now, including me. That night, I packed a bag. Not because I wanted to run, but because I needed to breathe somewhere else. I stayed at a cheap hotel downtown. Lay awake listening to the hum of traffic, wondering when I became the ghost in my own marriage. Then came a call from a number I didn't know. I answered. "Is this Aaron?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes." "Who's this?" "My name's Lisa. I'm Caleb's ex-wife." My stomach turned. She continued. "I think we need to talk. About your wife. And what Caleb did to me. You deserve to know." I met Lisa 2 days later at a diner, just off the interstate. One of those places with sticky menus, chipped coffee mugs, and waitresses who call everyone hon. It was neutral ground. No memories tied to it. No chance of running into Elena. Lisa was early. She sat in a corner booth, sipping iced tea with nervous hands. Mid-30s, dark hair, tired eyes, like someone who's been carrying weight too long with no one to help her. As soon as I sat down, she got right to it. "I don't want anything from you," she said. "I just thought you should know the truth." I nodded. "I'm listening." She took a breath, then dropped the first bomb. "Elena was the reason our marriage ended." My stomach twisted. "What?" She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a folder of screenshots. Texts. Photos. DMs. They reconnected a year and a half ago. At first, I didn't know. Then Caleb started disappearing on weekends, claiming work, art shows, creative retreats. But I saw her name pop up on his notifications. I asked. He lied. Then one day, I followed him. She showed me a photo. It was of Caleb's truck, parked outside a beach rental. Another photo. Elena on the porch, in a sundress, holding a wine glass. They spent 3 weekends there. One of them was our anniversary. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Lisa continued. I confronted him. He admitted it. Said he and Elena were meant to be. Said they had unfinished business. He moved out 2 weeks later. I stared at the table, words stuck in my throat. She added, I thought I'd be angry at her forever. But now, I just feel sorry for you. I looked up. Why? Because she's doing the same thing to you. Pretending it's love. But it's just old wounds being reopened. She's not building something new. She's clinging to something broken. I sat back, the weight of it all settling in. So this was never about exploring. It wasn't about finding herself. It was about going back. Back to a man who already burned one life to the ground. Now she was doing the same to mine. When I got home that evening, the house felt colder. Elena was on the couch, scrolling her phone. Hey, she said, without looking up. We need to talk. She glanced over. What's up? Imet Lisha. That got her attention. She set the phone down slowly. Why? Because I needed the truth. And you weren't giving it to me. Her face hardened. Aaron, that's private. That was before. No, it wasn't before. It was during. You were still with me when you were with him. You lied. She stood up, arms crossed. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. I laughed, bitter low. That's the definition of lying. Her eyes filled with something. Guilt? Defiance? I couldn't tell. He was my first love, she said, voice shaking. I never really got closure. And I was what? A placeholder? 12 years of my life. Was I just the guy you settled for until he got his act together? Tears welled in her eyes now, but I didn't move. She whispered, I never meant to hurt you. But you did, over and over. And I kept forgiving you. But you never stopped. You just did it better. The next morning, I found the guest room packed. My things, my clothes, my books. She stood in the hallway, arms folded. I think we need space, she said. I didn't argue. I just nodded. She had already left me emotionally. Now it was just logistics. I stayed with Daniel for a while. His guest room became my temporary home. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how it all unraveled so quietly. No dramatic fights, no slam doors, just slow erosion. Daniel tried to be supportive, but even he couldn't hide his disbelief. She really kicked you out. Technically, she asked for space, I muttered. He shook his head. You're the one who should have kicked her out. He wasn't wrong. A few days later, I got a call from Elena. I hesitated before answering. She sounded off. Can you come over? It's important. I didn't ask questions. I just drove. When I got there, she was in the living room, pacing. What's going on? I asked. She turned to me, eyes wide. I made a mistake. I didn't respond. She kept going. He's not who I thought he was. Caleb. I raised a brow. Took you this long? She flinched. I'm serious, Aaron. He moved in a week ago, and he changed. Got possessive. Jealous. Accused me of still loving you. Do you? I asked, voice low. She looked at me. And for the first time in weeks, I saw her. Not the version she was trying to be. Not the cold, detached version. Just, Elena. I don't know, she whispered. That hurt more than a no. I stayed the night. Not in the guest room, but on the couch. She didn't try to change that. We were strangers now, orbiting the ruins of what we once were. But the next morning, everything shifted again. She was gone. No note. No text. Just gone. I checked the bedroom. Empty. Checked the driveway. Her car missing. I called. No answer. Then I checked the guest room. That's when I noticed something strange. Yeah, painting bake. Still there. But the zipper was broken and papers spilled out. Among them, a letter. Not addressed to me, but to Caleb. It was torn at the edges, unfinished, like she never meant for anyone to see it. But I read it anyway. Caleb, I thought I wanted this. I thought I needed to revisit our past to understand who I was. But all it's done is show me how much I destroyed something good. Aaron didn't deserve this. And I don't know if I can fix it. Maybe I was never meant to be happy. Maybe I'm just someone who ruins the people who love her. I stopped reading. I didn't want her pity. But something about those last words, the people who love her, stuck with me. She still believed I loved her. And that might have been the worst part, because part of me still did. That evening, I got a message from Lisa again. One sentence. You might want to check your joint accounts. My blood ran cold. I logged in, and that's when I saw it. The withdrawals. Not huge amounts, but enough. Drip by drip. Over the past 3 months. Some under her name. Some under Caleb's. And one in cash. Thousands. Gone. And it had started before she told me about Caleb. Before she opened the marriage. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated. The numbers stared back at me like quiet accusations. Withdrawals on random days. Some just under $500. Others creeping into the thousands. Art supply stores. Boutique rentas. A few marked as consulting fees. All of it subtle enough to go unnoticed if you weren't looking. But I was looking now, and what I saw was a slow bleed. Not just of money, but of trust, of intention, of every ounce of decency I thought Elena still held. The worst part? I remembered some of those dates. The dinners she canceled last minute. The weekends she said she needed space. Every line now had a timestamp and a price tag. I sat in Daniel's kitchen the next morning, laptop open, jaw clenched. She emptied part of the savings? He asked. Not all of it, I replied. Just enough that it won't raise red flags unless you know what you're looking at. He shook his head. And you're still protecting her. Man, I don't get it. I'm not protecting her. I'm trying to understand what she's become. Daniel leaned in. She didn't become anything. She just stopped hiding it. I met with a lawyer that afternoon. No threats, just information. She confirmed what I already feared. Everything in our joint account could legally be withdrawn by either of us, unless I froze it. So I did. I split the remaining funds and transferred my half into a new account under my name. And I filed a petition for financial separation. Not divorce. Not yet. That night, I drove back to the house. Elena still hadn't returned. The place was eerily silent. Her shoes still by the door. Her jacket on the chair. A half-used coffee mug on the counter. I wasn't sure if she had left Caleb, or if he had taken her. I went to the bedroom, searching for her phone charger. Maybe she left her phone behind, but I found something else. A second phone, hidden in her bedside drawer. Locked. Different wallpaper. Different case. Burner phone. My heart hammered in my chest as I held it. This wasn't careless. This was deliberate. And when I charged it and opened the messages, everything became clearer. There were over 100 texts between Elena and Caleb. Most were from the weeks leading up to her announcement about opening the marriage. Caleb, you deserve everything, baby. He's just holding you back. Once it's done, we'll sell the house and disappear. Start over. Elena, he still thinks I'm figuring things out. Aaron's too soft. He won't fight back. That's what makes this easier. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just emotional. It was a setup. They planned it, down to my reactions, my passivity, my pain. But there were other texts too, more recent. Caleb, you're dragging your feet. You promised we'd have access by now. Elena, I'm having second thoughts. He's not the villain you want him to be. That one stopped me cold. Somewhere in her, she was starting to break from him, and that made her dangerous to him. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the house until morning, replaying every moment, every half-truth, every odd glance. She'd started this with full control, but now the puppet strings were tangled, and Caleb wasn't going to let go easily. The next day, I got a message from an unknown number. She's safe, but she needs time. Don't come looking. No name. No context. Just that. I tried calling. No answer. I called her parents, said I was checking in. Her mother's voice was hesitant. She stopped by here yesterday. Looked like she hadn't slept. Said she needed a few days to clear her head. Did she mention Caleb? A pause. Then no. But she left in a rush. And she looked scared. That was all I needed. I called Lisa again. I think he's done with her, I said. She didn't sound surprised. That's how he operates. Once the fantasy fades, he gets cruel, possessive, controlling. He made me cut off friends, monitored my phone, told me I wasn't allowed to talk to old co-workers. Did he ever hit you? Another pause. He never left a bruise. I filed a police report, not about violence, just a concerned person's report. I told them she was missing, possibly emotionally unstable, and possibly under pressure from someone dangerous. They took it seriously. I didn't tell Elena. I didn't need her permission to care. That weekend, she finally called. Her voice was shaky. Where are you? I asked. I'm okay, she said quickly. I just needed to get away. I'm staying with a friend. Are you with him? Silence. No. Did he hurt you? Another silence. Then not physically. But it's not what I thought it would be. I gripped the phone tighter. Elena, I read the messages. I know about the account. I know what you two were planning. I know, she whispered. I figured you would. Why? A pause. Then, because I wanted to punish you. That hit like a brick. For what? For being too good, too patient, too safe. I felt stuck, like I needed to destroy something to feel alive again. I had no words. She continued. Caleb made me feel like I was powerful. But in the end, he just used me. And when I told him I wasn't ready to go through with the plan, he turned cold. Said I was weak. Said I deserved to be miserable. Where is he now? I asked. I don't know. I left in the middle of the night. The next morning, I found Caleb's truck parked outside our house. He was in the driveway, smoking. I walked out. He looked up, smirked. Where is she? He asked. Gone, I said. Not your problem anymore. His smirk twisted. You think this is over? You're both weak. You deserve each other. I didn't flinch. Get off my property. He took a long drag, flicked the cigarette into the grass, and walked off. I stood there until the truck disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside and locked the door. That afternoon, Elena came back. No dramatics. No epalegi. She just stood in the doorway and said, Can I come in? I nodded. She walked into the living room and sat down like she used to, like she still belonged here. And for a moment, it felt almost normal. Until I remembered everything. The plan. The lies. The replacement. She said, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't, I replied. But I want to make it right. How? I talked to the bank. I'm transferring the money back. I'll sign whatever you need. And I'll leave. You deserve peace. I looked at her for a long time, then said, you can't undo what's been done, but you can stop running. Her eyes welled. Why are you being kind to me? Because someone has to be the last good thing you remember. Elena stayed 2 nights in the guest room. No arguments. No questions. We barely spoke, but the silence between us had shifted. It wasn't cold anymore, just tired. On the 3rd morning, she made coffee. Black, the way I used to drink it before I started adding cream to dull the bitterness. I came downstairs to find her in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. She looked up. I didn't sleep. I know, I said, sitting down. She pushed a small envelope across the table. Inside were printouts, emails, receipts, confirmation numbers. Proof that she had returned the money. Every cent. I didn't spend it, she added. It just sat there. I think I was waiting for a moment that would justify using it. And it never came. She shook her head. Caleb thought he could buy a life. But I realized, too late, I wasn't ready to sell mine. She started going to therapy after that. Twice a week. Sometimes more. She didn't ask me to wait for her, or stay, or forgive. She just worked on herself. Quietly. Consistently. And I kept my distance. Until one afternoon, when she left her notebook open on the kitchen table. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. The page was simple. No poetry. No drama. Just a list titled, What I Broke. Aaron's trust. My own judgment. Our sense of home. The future we never planned. The parts of me that used to believe I was enough. At the bottom, she'd written, am I still human if I try to rebuild it all? The thing about pain is that it lingers even when the bleeding stops. We started talking again, slowly. A walk around the block. Lunch at the kitchen island. Watching a movie, sitting apart but in the same room. Not as husband and wife, but as people. People who shared something real and ruined it, and now had to decide whether it could be repainted or just remembered. One day, I got a call from Lisa again. I thought you should know, she said. Caleb skipped town. Where to? No clue. He emptied his studio, closed all his social accounts. Just vanished. I exhaled, not in relief. Not exactly, but an acknowledgement that a chapter had truly closed. I found a box in the attic while looking for old tax papers. Inside were photos. Our first Christmas. Her 30th birthday. A trip to Oregon where it rained the whole time, and we laughed about it for days. Tucked in the corner was a letter I'd written her years ago, back when we still left love notes around the house. She kept it, even after everything. I read it again. I meant every word back then.